Welcome to another episode of the Personal Transformation Podcast with your hosts, Maureen and David Brand. Today's title is, Are You the Scapegoat? Master Workplace and Family Dynamics and Respond Effectively. So we are talking about scapegoating both at work and in a family environment in the context of a committed relationship. What is a scapegoat? If you've never heard the term before, according to Merriam-Webster, it is a goat upon whose head are symbolically placed the sins of the people. So this goes back to Old Testament biblical times, this definition. But more commonly today, it is used to blame somebody else for something or to make someone an object of hostility. So what are some examples of scapegoating? It can be in a workplace environment. It can be where you're getting ganged up on at work or being blamed for other people's mistakes. People could be working in concert in teams against you. Selective targeting, where they only accentuate the mistakes you've made and don't give you any praise. Sending emails out to only comment on other things people have done, but never recognizing your accomplishments. So if you've ever been singled out at work, you might have been a scapegoat.
It's like a passive-aggressive ostracizing,
tactic. It does kind of feel that way. And the problem is at work, the person who's being scapegoated doesn't care about politics. And so they are kind of left on the fringe if they don't figure out the game. And I think this happens in school too, right? If you're autistic and ADHD, and I know you work with neurodiverse populations in the Ability Builder coaching and consulting company that you run. So there, I'm sure we see people that are neurodiverse are outside the circle and they don't understand those dynamics.
Yeah, and they want to get inside the circle and nobody lets them. Or they act like the tricky thing with people on the spectrum is they don't recognize these sort of subtle dynamics and nuances of relationships and social nuances. Like they don't recognize it. So the dynamic, especially with females, is a little trickier, and they will act like they accept you, and it'll be like a big joke. And the person on the spectrum doesn't recognize that right away. They don't realize they're not kind of being, made fun of, or it's it's like, oh well, let's do this. Let's see how she reacts or he reacts to this, and it's not nice.
No, it's not nice at all. And as we were working on this, I had a memory of being, I want to say I was 12 or 13, so it was middle school. Tough time for everybody, for sure.
Yeah.
And I was just puberty, right? So I was just getting these little upper hairs right above my upper lip. And probably at the time, because they were growing in, it kind of felt, and it was a sensory thing, and I was pulling on them. And some other guys in the class, they were laughing, they were acting weird, and the teacher said, "What's going on?" And this ringleader, right, because there's always a ringleader with a scapegoat, whether it's work, school, calls out to the teacher and says, we can't focus on what you're talking about because David Brand is pulling at the hairs on his upper lip. So the teacher is a class of 40, it was a huge class, many rows of students. And she says, I had to leave the room. She made me leave the room, and everybody was laughing at me. She made me leave the room because I was doing this with my hairs.
That's awful.
Yeah. So I was a scapegoat. Right, because these guys, were a-holes basically. I mean, they were kids, obviously, but and they got me expelled from the class.
That's common, like kids will do that. They will gang up on one kid who they know that is not sort of aware of what's going on,
right?
On the spectrum, and they'll like make them the fall guy or the scapegoat. Like they'll get them to do something they're not supposed to do. And they don't realize they're not supposed to do it, or, they think it's okay, and then they get in trouble, and the teacher,
stupidly, feeds into it. But you can have this dynamic at work, too, where you have a boss who's not in full control or aware, and then you have a team of people that are essentially ganging up on somebody. So an example of that in the workplace might be somebody saying, well, why is your project not completed in time? Oh, well, I couldn't finish my project because Brand's hogging all the resources. Right. Or Brand is, his project's behind schedule, and I have a dependency on his project, so it's all his fault. And
right.
now a good boss might say, what have you done to help Brand? Or have you met with Brand? No, right? And he's not going to ask those questions. So the scapegoat gets away with blaming everything on this other person, even though they might have an inadequacy.
Right. Well, they're not accountable. They're just
they're not accountable.
Pointing the fingers at everybody, like, and they're not taking accountability for their own behavior. Could have nothing to do with you.
Absolutely. And it usually doesn't have anything to do with the person being scapegoated. An interesting quote from this article we'll share, Creating Scapegoats in the Workplace on Psych Central. Dysfunctional leaders have a need for a power and they're inclined to hate these types of people, independent people, right? People who work independently. And controllers hate those that they cannot control.
Right.
So... that creates a problem, right? When I think about it, people talk to me like, hey, you got to learn how to play the game or play the politics. I've never been interested in that. And then, therefore,
me either.
I get scapegoated, right?
Yeah.
So there's that piece at work. But now that I'm aware of it, like I've been able to stand up for myself because that's really all you can do in the workplace is say, I'm not going to be forced to make a decision right now. I am not going to accept that I solely am to blame for what happened, right? Like say a team of people agree to get behind something, it goes bad, and I've seen this happen, and then a year later it goes bad and they say, well, that was your fault. Well, I thought the team backed this. Last I heard, a presentation was made to a team and the team all approved it.
Right, and now it's like an individual.
And you were shown the benefits and the risks of moving forward, and now it didn't go didn't go well, rather. It's on the individual. So that's scapegoating.
Yeah.
But what about in a family? I know you've got a lot to say about that.
Well, I mean, I'm sitting here listening because we talked about this earlier, and, scapegoating, I guess it's a bullying tactic.
100%.
So, I mean, because bullying is bullying, it's scapegoating.
Right.
It's the same thing, except it's a tactic of bullying. So people can bully other people using them as scapegoats, or they can physically bully them. I would say it's a form of verbally bullying them. Yeah. So, I mean, I just, I didn't really look at it as, I didn't understand the term scapegoat when I was younger, but I think, kind of you're the weak chicken of the family and everybody picks on you.
Yeah. Well, weak chicken anywhere, right? Work, family.
They look at you that way, like, because you're not really wanting to go along with anything, right? You're kind of carving your own path, you're in your own lane. And I think, if it's easy, if you could be the butt of everybody's joke and it makes them feel better about themselves, then they'll do that to you.
And things are funnier when it's not just one person laughing, right? So if there's a group of 5 and 4 people are laughing at the one person, the 4 people have that camaraderie and that's something in common, like, hey, we can all share a laugh by making fun of this person.
Right. And then the whole family gets involved.
Right.
Extended family too.
Yeah.
They all think it's a big joke.
Right.
And it's so funny, but then they'll turn around and be like, well, I don't like what this one said to me. And I finally had to say something to her because she's been, making fun of this or thinking it's a joke my whole life. And I finally, had to put her in her place. Okay. So I'm not sure why you waited so long, but know that that's how it feels. Like, there was a part of me that wanted to say, yeah, I get it because my whole family did this to me and you were in on it.
Right.
So, and you thought it was funny.
Right.
I don't think it's funny. I mean, once or twice is funny enough, but like after a while, it's just, you're not the butt of everybody's joke. So yeah, I think it takes time. I mean, it took me time and courage to finally just be like, no, this is not happening. And I'm not going to continue this conversation. I'm not going to continue this relationship if you're going to talk to me this way.
Right.
Or make fun of me in that way.
Yeah, setting boundaries
I don't like
is
it.
key.
It's not funny. There's nothing I can do about what you're making fun of. I can't change it. But you seem to get a thrill out of making fun of it.
Right.
Is there some part of you that's enjoying that? Like, does it make you feel like a bigger person?
Right.
So, and that's basically, what I said. And I just, because I just don't tolerate it anymore. And now, there's boundaries. So we don't have to listen to it anymore, and I hold those boundaries because I'm done.
Yeah, no, that's good. That shows that you've learned and moved forward. So inside a relationship, specifically where there's two people in a relationship, one person can be unfairly blamed or criticized for something. Let's say you were driving somewhere and you said to somebody, hey, where am I going? What's the next step?
Right.
And then they make a wrong turn and they get lost. It's your fault. You gave me bad directions.
Right. Yeah. Right? I mean,
not taking accountability for maybe I should have actually mapped this out myself.
Well, yeah.
First.
I mean, I was my previous marriage. That was the way it was. Everything was my fault. Everything.
They asked you to provide the directions, and then when they weren't right, you were blamed for it. Right.
This is your area where I don't know where I'm lost. I don't know where I am. I don't know where you are. This, and he's giving me streets and names, and I'm like, I don't know. And it's like he's yelling at me, and because I don't know where he is. He's lost, and it's my fault.
Right. So it's a lack of accountability.
Right.
And usually, even at work, the person who's doing the scapegoating refuses to be accountable for the things that they don't do correctly. Right.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a smokescreen and a way to deflect from their failings and project it on the others. So the focus shifts from them to other people, right? In the case of your ex, you're talking about the focus being shifted from them and their failure to get this right, where they were going,
to find where they
onto
are.
you.
Right.
Right.
Like pull over, ask somebody.
I think it's a shift in ownership and accountability.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just that. It was everything. Everything from our child's issues to, stuff that I would cook for dinner. I mean, I'm cooking.
Well, hopefully they're not watching this episode.
I don't really care. They can. I have nothing to hide.
So another example would be like, say there's even parents that are not separated, but especially when they are, one buys a child a game console and then criticizes the other parent for how long they're on the game console. Or they never get off of that. Well,
yeah, it's your fault they're addicted to screens.
Oh, you say you bought it for them, then you're scapegoating like back and forth, right? So that everybody's trying to pass the buck, right? In that case. Creating unsafe situations for a child, like maybe one parent's drinking in front of the other child, and you ask the child, do they feel safe when the parent's drinking? The other parent says they would have not felt anything had you not brought it up. So they're trying to deflect from the behavior of the excessive drinking to it's your fault for bringing it up.
Right. Yeah,
so that's scapegoating as well.
Yeah, and other people's behaviors too, I mean, I was blamed for other people's behaviors. Like, trying to ask a clarifying question and that person got angry at the person that I was asking the question about, and they went and reacted. But it was my fault that person reacted that way? No, I'm not responsible for the way anybody else behaves.
That's right.
I don't give a shit what I tell people. I'm not responsible. If you feel like I tell you something and you feel like you have to react in a certain way, that's on you. It's in your body, your mind. You're responsible for the way you behave and respond to information. Not on me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that happened a lot. I would inadvertently ask questions or be confused about something. And then I got, and it was all of a sudden I was just, horrible, mean, hateful person.
And I think back to elementary school. So you have a child with high functioning autism, as do I. And they also have ADHD and dyslexia, right? Which is like a lot of stuff wrapped up together.
Yeah.
Definitely made school difficult. But I remember that the teachers would push your child's buttons, right?
Yes.
And when almost it feels intentional, but I'm not them. I can't say it was, but the way they escalated your child, and then something happened, right? They got a little bit violent, or they ran away from the school, and the teachers would blame it on you for not disciplining enough, right?
She would get suspended,
right?
But it was a result of their behavior,
and they were the scapegoat,
and my child's disability.
The child was the scapegoat.
It's manifest. What is that called?
So teacher doesn't know how to teach this person or tailor the approach to this person with a disability.
Right.
And things go wrong. They blame the child or the other
Right.
parent.
That happened in middle school.
That's scapegoating.
I'll never forget it. Yeah. She, I forget why they called her to the office. I don't remember what happened. All this was a manifestation of her disability, her inability to regulate her emotions, ADHD, dyslexia, autism, right? You have like this great trifecta. And, this principal was like 7 feet tall, and they put her in a room with a small room with a small table and chairs, and they cornered her. You cannot do that to my child. Fight, flight, free.
Well,
right?
most kids
freeze.
Can't corner.
She won't freeze, but she will fight.
Right.
And that's the problem.
And they brought
she
it
couldn't
at her,
flee.
and then they blamed her for
and then
the
they
behavior.
blamed her.
Yeah.
But they created it. They created the situation. I was so angry about that. And I wish that's why I got into the work I do now, because I wish I knew me back then.
Yeah.
Because if I had someone like me in my corner saying, oh, no, this is a manifestation issue, the principal, I would have sued them.
Right.
Because they did this time and time again. And I had teachers be like, oh, she doesn't have autism.
A shameless plug for your business. If you're in the Carolinas, Maureen is available to help you with advocacy if you're having these types of issues.
Coaching and consulting.
It's in our underneath our video, but she can help you develop an advocacy plan, an action plan around these types of issues in school.
Yeah,
for sure.
And it still happens. I mean, it happened down here, and we're in a really good school district, and teachers pushed their buttons left and right, and then all of a sudden, I was called.
Well, that's what even at work I've had situations where people do things, and I wasn't aware as I am today. To your point as well, what we've learned, that's the personal transformation. Is this? Pushing and bearing down on me to the point where I blew up and I said something later I regretted being dysregulated.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas in a more recent example, instead of getting dysregulated, I was firm and set a boundary. I am not making the decision in this moment. I am following my process to make this decision the proper way.
Yeah.
That is the end of the discussion.
Yep.
Right? So that's setting a boundary and not allowing someone to escalate you and, look, they got dysregulated again.
Right. But when you're in a situation where you have a child, an adolescent, and you have teachers who are professionals, who's supposed to be behaving?
Right.
Who's supposed to have control of their emotions? The teachers.
There is no, well, ideally, but you would say at work, should have.
Right. You were dealing with grown executives.
You would think, but there's absence of accountability at all levels. And that's what we're dealing with in life.
Yep.
And even I think you were talking about people feeling a certain way. So if you say to someone, I hadn't thought about this till right now. If you say to someone, you're making me angry, you're scapegoating someone else for your feelings, right? Instead of.
Yeah, I feel angry by what you just said. What you just said made me angry or made me feel angry. That's taking accountability. You're angry. Somebody said something that made you feel angry. You're allowed to express that. You're allowed to you have permission to feel. Thank you, Mark
You're
Brackett.
allowed to feel, but constantly saying to someone else, you're making me angry. You're making me.
Well, something you just said made me angry.
Right.
That's okay. I mean, if you say something, I need to tell you. I don't like the way that I don't like what you just said.
Well, now that's a little different, right? If you're saying I don't allow, I think best in a situation, I don't allow people to talk to me that way.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Instead of getting angry,
right,
you could just say to somebody, I don't allow people to talk to me that way. You can get angry. Everybody has permission to feel, as you said. You're entitled to your emotions. But true regulation of emotion, the control of emotion, is be able to not get angry in that situation and say, I'm sorry, you don't need to say I'm sorry and thank you. You say that all the time. Just say, I don't allow people to talk to me that way. When you can talk to me in a respectful tone, we can resume this conversation and walk away.
That's it.
And you don't need to get angry.
No,
because
you don't.
That's your response. Instead of letting emotion be your response, you're now brain science, right?
Right.
Or you do it using the amygdala or the prefrontal cortex. If the prefrontal cortex is engaged, you're redirecting someone to, this is my boundary.
Right.
I don't need to engage my amygdala in that situation.
Right. So instead of, you have to catch that before it happens. Yeah. Right. Which, I love, who said it? Jefferson Fisher, let your breath be your first word.
Absolutely.
If you let your breath be your first word, then your amygdala won't take over. Your emotional center of your brain won't take over. And you won't be like, you're making me angry. Because no one can make you angry. You make yourself angry.
And they don't care. They don't care. The thing is, that person doesn't care.
They care because they wanted to do that.
Right.
That was their goal.
And you're giving them satisfaction by saying you're angry.
Yes.
So I would say.
So they're kind of like, good, I'm glad.
Right?
Yeah, I made you angry. But I love your responses. Yeah, I don't
allow people to speak to me that way.
Mm-hmm.
Please come back to me when you are able to speak with me respectfully.
Or you can come back if you want when you're ready to speak respectfully. Otherwise, don't come back.
Right. Well, that's really, I don't know if I would say that to a coworker, right, or my boss, right?
I know. I always go over the
going over the top.
I go over the top with these things, but
so I think it's good because we've talked a little bit about what scapegoating is and what it looks like in different examples, and we've talked about how do you combat it, because I think that's probably the hardest thing for people to do is to be able to look at the situation without getting too emotionally involved in it and say, I see what's happening here and I'm not tolerating it and I'm not going to allow it.
Yeah,
right?
you just
Because
don't allow
if you
it.
allow it to get to you, then you've been scapegoated.
Well, yeah, like
right?
I don't know who said it, but you treat people, you teach people how to treat you.
That's right.
You teach them how to treat you.
Right.
If you allow them to treat you a certain way, then that's how they're going to.
You see, allow me to teach you how to speak to me correctly.
Well, I
right?
wouldn't even ask
that
the question.
That sounds a little condescending, but
I'm going to teach you how to treat me.
and this goes back to what's the strategy, right? Speak up calmly and assertively. You have to make your needs known constructively and respectfully. Getting the shouting matches with people
Right.
only then shifts the spotlight. I had to coach a new manager repeatedly. She had an inability to control emotions when speaking to an employee. An employee would say, well, the reason why I'm not performing is you didn't give me training. Like, oh, that pisses me off when you say you didn't get training. Well, now the focus is on you. You're the dysregulated one.
Right.
We're trying to focus on speaking to an employee about their behavior. They're scapegoating it back to you. Now they're making you the scapegoat.
And you're falling right
and
into
you're getting
it.
emotional
Right,
dysregulated.
right.
Guess what? You just put the spotlight on you and off the employee, and that you never want to do that in a coaching conversation. Everybody has to know it is okay to say no. No is a word. Should always be in your vocabulary.
It's a full sentence.
You don't need to apologize. You don't need to say, I'm sorry. I don't allow people to talk to me. No, you're not sorry. There's nothing to be sorry about.
Right. No is a full sentence.
And no is a full sentence. You're allowed to stand up for yourself.
Yep.
And a lot of the people get scapegoated, get down on themselves. Well, I must be a failure. I must be this. No, you have to have self-compassion and self-respect.
Well, the self-respect, right? Because if you have confidence and self-respect, you're not going to allow it.
Right.
Right. And this is where I work with parents a lot, especially ones with who are adolescents. You know, what do you want? What are your priorities? I want my child to be confident. I want to have them have high self-esteem. I want them to not be pushovers. Okay, so you need to have confidence in your child. Whether you feel it or not,
Right.
you fake it until you make it. You make sure that child believes that you have confidence and that they can do something.
Yeah.
I don't care if you don't have confidence. They'll be like, I don't have any confidence in my child.
Right.
Okay, you don't have to. But you need to make sure they think you do.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have confidence,
they have to feel it.
They have to feel. If you don't have confidence in your child, how could they possibly get confidence in themselves if you don't instill that confidence and help them instill that confidence? They're too little.
Yeah.
They're young. They're 9, 10, 11, 12. It's really important that that's where you begin. And this way they'll never be somebody's scapegoat.
Right. That's what we want. We don't want people to be somebody's scapegoat.
Right. And it all begins there. But if you're an adult and you're doing this should be helpful because now you can recognize it and know that let your breath be your first word. Don't let your amygdala take over and let people know I don't tolerate somebody speaking to me that way. This conversation's over.
Yeah.
If you would like to return to this conversation, you can return with respect.
I love it. That's great advice for everybody. And I think the final thing from the research that I did around this is you can't go it alone. You have to have a strong social network. And that's definitely important for everyone, no matter where you are, but especially in work environments, right? Have people that you trust, that you can connect with, that will advocate for you too, right? So you're not all alone as a target, right, from an entire team of people. So you want to build a support network.
Yeah.
And that's true for kids, right? That's what kids try and gravitate to people that they feel accepted.
Right.
And sometimes it leans into something that, we may not want to see our kids engage in, but, as far as the groups.
Yes, but as the parent of an adolescent child, it's important that you help to nurture the village that's helping to raise them. And within that village, you're going to have parents who have children like your child or not, typically developing children, but you want to be able to try to get them to engage in activities where they're not isolated or not singled out. They're part of a team or part of a group. It's something that they enjoy.
That's extracurricular activities, right?
Anything that they enjoy, social activities.
Dance,
right.
Art,
And they're going to gravitate to people like them because that's what they do, and that's okay. I mean, my daughter doesn't really have, I don't think any of her friends they're all neurodiverse, and they're all a great bunch of kids. I mean, I couldn't ask for better friends for my child, but she connects with them. Yeah. And that's the important thing. You're not going to connect with a typically developing kid in college that goes to, Clemson or USC. That's not, she doesn't have anything in common with that person.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So her network is her network. And allow your kids to have the network that they have. And even if you may not like the people, right? I wouldn't pick those friends for myself, but that's not for you to make that call.
No, it's right. It's their journey. As long as they're safe and they're not doing anything illegal and they're not hurting anybody. They might be quirky. They might be different.
Yeah.
Sometimes they could be rude, especially neurodiverse people. They don't recognize it. Yeah. And you have to kind of just let that go because they don't recognize that dynamic as something that's a problem.
All right. So we've hoped that this episode has helped you recognize what scapegoating is, who a typical person being scapegoated looks like, what scapegoating language looks like, what scapegoating looks like in a workplace, in a family situation, and how to respond to scapegoating,
in a relationship,
which you outlined for us. Those, I think it was 3 clear steps that you outlined. So thank you for that. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think we covered it all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very concise, and hope you liked our experimental background this week. Is
that the Outer Banks?
That is the Outer Banks.
The Outer Banks behind us.
That's from 4 years ago. So we would love for you, if you enjoyed this podcast, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. That tells other people that this is content that's valuable. And go to our Instagram page at Personal Transformation EXP. And feel free to email us at changingtheworldwithinus@gmail.com.
Drop a comment. Yeah.
Yes. All right. We'll see you next time. Have a great week.